Today we're going to take a look at the Thule Apex XT 5 bike rack. This is a hanging style bike rack that's going to mount to the hitch receiver of your vehicle. It's going to allow you to get up to 5 bikes loaded up and then carry them to and from your destination. This bike rack is going to be able to fit a wide variety of bikes. We've got mountain bikes, road bikes, even our kids and women's bikes. However, you can see with our kids bike, because it does have a smaller frame, and this will also be the case with any bikes that have unique frame styles, you may need to invest in a bike adapter bar to be able to fit it onto this bike rack. As long as you have one of those, it's going to still be very secure and hold up well for travel. Now overall, I think the Thule Apex is a very solid bike rack. One of the other 5 bike hanging style racks I've worked with is going to be the Ceres Glide EX 5 bike rack. Now one advantage that one may have over our Thule is that it can actually tilt away from the vehicle while bikes are loaded. But one thing I think the Thule Apex excels in when compared to that Ceres Glide is that it grips the bikes a lot better. It's going to make sure they're secure for the trip. Just to show you guys, let's show you how it performed on our test course. Up first is going to be our slalom, which is going to simulate side-to-side action like evasive maneuvering or taking a sharp turn. And now our alternating speed bumps, which is going to simulate driving over uneven pavement like potholes. Now we're on to the solid speed bumps, which is going to simulate the up and down action like going over a speed bump or pulling into your driveway. It does come with an onboard cable lock, which comes from the mast of the bike rack. Once you pull it over all the frames of your bikes, it just goes into the slot right there that's on the end of our arm. When we're ready to unload our bikes, we'll just insert our included key, unlock it. Now we can remove this cable and then stow it back into the mast of our bike rack and then unload our bikes. One thing to keep in mind when loading up this bike rack is that each set of cradles is going to have a weight capacity of 37.5 pounds. Now that doesn't mean that just because we have our kids bike on here that only weighs about 15 pounds, doesn't mean we can overload another set of cradles because this one is so light. Each cradle can handle 37.5 pounds, and one thing you want to keep in mind is that you want to load your heaviest bikes at the very front, and then as you get lighter, come out towards the edge. Because this is a 5 bike rack, the spacing between our bikes is only going to be 5.5 inches, which means most likely your bikes are going to rub up against each other, and that's going to be the case with most hanging style racks. But if that's something that doesn't bother you, this is going to be a great option. Now that I've gone ahead and removed some of those bikes, we can have a closer look at the cradles. They have a nice soft rubber padding that's going to help protect your bike frames from any type of scratches or abrasions. We're also going to have these grooves on our cradles on the rubber padding. That's the place for your bike cables to sit so they don't get damaged by the weight of your bike while you're traveling. If we look at the bike still installed, our mountain bike right here, we can see that cable go along, enters that groove. The weight of the bike can't touch it, which means it's going to last a lot longer and it's not going to get damaged. Now one feature that this bike rack has that is pretty neat in my opinion is that you can actually hide away your anti-sway cradles when they're not in use, and that'll make for a lot easier loading and unloading. However, it is kind of a little bit of a hassle just because you have to take your strap out to be able to get this to fold up. Personally, I just would rather leave mine in unless I knew I wasn't going to be filling up my bike rack for a long period of time. So all you would have to do is undo your strap and then pull it out of the cradle, which gotta give it a little bit of force to get it out. But once you do, you can stow that in the trunk or wherever else is convenient. And then you can see that the cradle actually does come up and clip into place. It's hiding away. It's going to make it easier to unload your bikes because those won't be in the way. Now each bike is going to have 3 different points of connection to the bike rack. It's going to be 3 different straps. 2 of them are on the top tube. One of them is up towards the handlebars, and the other one is going to be by the seat post. These rubber straps are going to make sure they have a good hold on your bike. Let's go ahead and take this one out. You can see the inside of the strap. It's got that soft rubber lining to it. Again, it's going to help make sure it doesn't damage your bike frames at all. And I really like how flexible these straps are. Just going to make it so they're not in the way as much, rather than those stiff rubber straps that Thule has on some of their other products. Now the third point of contact that we have is going to be this anti-sway cradle like we talked about earlier. We have a strap going around our seat post tube. Notice that with our current bike, we got it to go in between the cable and the bike frame. You want to make sure you're not crushing any cables when you're securing your bikes. But that anti-sway cradle is going to help take out a lot of the unnecessary movement in our bikes. You can see there's still a little bit of sway there, which is perfectly okay. It's not going to hurt it at all, but it does take a lot of the movement away to help prevent bike-to-bike contact or bike-to-vehicle contact. The rack is going to have a snug, tight stinger right here that goes inside the hitch, as well as this hand knob to use to tighten it down. Basically what that does is it acts as the anti-rattle device. Once you tighten down the knob all the way, it expands the stinger and basically just wedges the entire shank into the hitch. That takes away the shake and play from our bike rack even when we're traveling at high speeds. And you can see there's also a lock on our hand knob that's going to help us lock up our stinger. It is going to be key to like with your cable lock. Once we lock it, that basically just takes the hand knob off of the threads. So no matter if you spin it left or right, it's going to stay put. It's going to be a great anti-theft device going along with your cable lock. What is really cool is that if we look at the end of our shank, we're going to see that we have a sleeve on the end, which is this gray part right here. We can actually remove this, and that'll convert the shank to be compatible with 1.25" hitches. So if you've got multiple vehicles in your household with those two size hitches, you can be able to use this bike rack for both of them. Now with this mountain bike that we have loaded, it does kind of have an odd shaped frame. So when it comes to bikes like this, you may have a little bit more of a hassle getting it off the rack, but it still shouldn't be that bad. You just might have to wiggle it around a little bit more to get it around those cradles. Just make sure you get those anti-sway cradles folded up. And there you go. Just going to pull that hitch switch lever up top, let the arms fold down until they lock into place. You heard that loud click, letting you know that it's not going anywhere. We cut down on that space, now we can fit into tighter spots. Now with this bike rack installed, we actually cannot gain access to the rear hatch, but what we can do is tilt this away when no bikes are loaded, and that'll allow us to open up our hatch. We're just going to come down to our hitch switch lever, which is down here. Pull that up, now we can tilt it away, and it's going to lock in place down there so that it can't come back up. From here, it's very easy to open up the trunk. You can see there was plenty of clearance between the hatch and our bike rack. We got plenty of space to grab whatever items we might need out of our trunk. When you're going to tilt it back up, we're going to come back down, and we're actually going to have to pull that hitch switch lever again. And then we can tilt it back up until it makes that loud audible click. Now that click is something Thule is really proud of. They really do want to make sure you know when your stuff is locked into place to make sure that it's not going to fly off or anything like that when you're on the road. The bike rack is very solid as well. It's got a nice sturdy steel construction to it, and also has a black powder coat finish, and that's going to help it resist rust and corrosion. And it's going to come in at just about 35 pounds. That's going to be very light and easy to be able to install into your hitch when you compare it to those platform racks that can carry 4 bikes. Well, thank you all for watching. That's going to do it for our look at the Thule Apex XT 5 bike rack.